Welcome to Inspired, a new 6-part radio documentary series from Seeds of Peace. I'm one of your hosts, Bilal Qureshi.
And I'm Marissa Mazria-Katz. I'm a journalist working in New York City.
And I'm a radio reporter and producer based in Washington, D.C. This series is inspired by Seeds of Peace. For more than 25 years, the organization has been bringing young people together from across lines of conflict
and cultivating new generations of global leaders.
We are here, we are part of this America whose identity, I believe, is almost always changing.
The political situation in Israel is the driving force behind all of my social work.
For these audio documentaries, we've been traveling and meeting some of those people. From the schools of Lahore, Pakistan.
These are the young people who are going to change the educational landscape of Pakistan and change it for the better.
To the music studios of Jaffa, Israel.
Art and music can serve a safe space for communication that's beyond Jewish or Arab, beyond whatever wall there is to be put.
From the refugee camps in Palestine,
there's a kind of little light in such big darkness.
To the south side of Chicago.
It was more about wanting to show other people that they're capable of being better, doing better, and seeing better.
We'll hear about their inspirational journeys and the ways they've inspired others. And in this third episode of our series, Inspired, we're heading to school in Lahore, Pakistan.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, N, O, P, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. You learn again?
While listening to these young children from Pakistan recite their ABCs, I'm reminded that Pakistan and Pakistani voices are usually in our ears for very different reasons. Sadly, in news features about terrorist attacks or political crises.
Marissa, this story really hits home for me because I was actually born in Pakistan, and as an American journalist, I have watched my sort of home country become synonymous with the kinds of chronic problems you're talking about: terrorism, crisis, corruption. But in many ways, the biggest long-term challenge facing Pakistan as a country is a demographic one. It's a very young country where the majority of people are children.
23 million children are out of school.
Raza Rumi is one of Pakistan's leading journalists.
And then it is not just the number of schools or kids inside schools, but also the quality of education. All surveys have consistently shown that children are not learning enough or properly in public schools.
And how this country's next generation is educated and how it engages with the world is the key to how it's going to move beyond many of those problems. Recently, I traveled to Pakistan to meet one young man who is trying to address Pakistan's educational gap.
It's up to the common folks to do something, because if they keep waiting for the government to change their destinies, they will always be waiting.
Marissa, that's the voice of Ahmed. Ahmed isn't even 30 years old, but he's been working on a model for a new school system that he thinks can address Pakistan's education crisis. He's called it the Lincoln School System.
How are you, everyone? Are you fine?
Yes.
Okay,
It's a school that brings highly subsidized and high-quality education to some of Lahore's poorest communities. Education has become big business in Pakistan because parents desperately want for their kids to have opportunities to move forward. But even for poor families like the ones that Ahmed is trying to serve, any tuition fee can be too much to pay, and so they choose not to send their kids to school.
Historically, in Pakistan, poor parents didn't send their girls to school. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly, Marissa, you're right. I mean, this has been one of the greatest challenges for Pakistan's policymakers, is that girls' education levels and literacy levels are still severely lagging behind those of boys. And this is a problem that Ahmed wanted to address through his school.
There have been a lot of instances in Pakistan where parents who are earning a limited amount of money would rather spend their own money and by their own logics on the education of their boys, because they think that boys are supposed to be the breadwinners of the family and girls will be married off at 17 or 18 years of age. So that is why they would rather spend their boys to the best schools in Pakistan and their girls to the madrasas or government schools or no schools at all. So we use that logic, turn it upside down, and we ask boys to pay for our product, which is high quality education, and the money we generate from that particular thing, we subsidize the education of girls who can't really pay for their own education.
A,
They've been providing half and in many cases full scholarships to the young girls studying here. They're using revenues from the boys' fees and outside contributions to make it easier for parents to commit to their daughter's education. They're incentivizing the girls' education by subsidizing it and in as many cases as they can, making it essentially free.
That's incredible.
Marissa, I talked to Pakistani journalist Raza Rumi about this, who's worked in the development sector. He's written a lot about Pakistan and education. He says an innovative approach like the kind that Ahmed is taking, this sort of subsidized system for girls, is actually a reflection of a really important cultural shift that's happening in Pakistan today.
Now we have this drive, and Malala symbolizes that impetus.
Raza Rumi is, of course, referring to the Pakistani Nobel Peace Prize winner, Malala Yousafzai, who survived an attack from the Taliban on her way to school.
Right, and she's really become a symbol for girls' education around the world.
And definitely here at home in Pakistan.
Even in the worst of odds, like in a place where Malala was growing up, which was undergoing conflict and extremist violence, a young girl was writing blogs about the importance of education and going to school. And there are many, many thousands of Malalas across Pakistan and their parents who want to overcome these structural barriers.
Bilal, take me to where the Lincoln school system is in Lahore.
So this school, which is probably nothing like a school you may imagine in a kind of open space, it's a very small, almost like a storefront building in a very crowded street. But it's located at the border of an affluent and poor neighborhood in Lahore. There are more than 150 students studying here between kindergarten through 7th grade. They're taught by 12 teachers, and it's also a family operation. Ahmed's brother Mushtaba is the coordinator and accountant of the school, and his mother Lubna, who's a lifelong educator, is the school's principal. They're both working for free.
Actually, teaching is my passion. And I always love to do all these type of things, and I actually want to do something positive in my society from my side, which everybody should do. So, aeroplane, it starts with which letter? A. So is A vowel or consonant?
How different is this to Pakistan's public schools?
I did some reporting in Pakistan's education system many years ago, and one of the things that was often, emphasized in it was memorization, rote sort of repetition, a certain kind of lack of critical thinking that's developed for young people, especially those who are from low-income families. But here in the school that I was visiting, there was interaction, there was conversation, and you'll hear there was a lot of play. When I talked to Ahmed about the making of the school system, Marissa, he told me the idea to make a school was the easy part. Creating a business from scratch in Pakistan meant sleepless nights, uphill battles, and many mundane details that he had not anticipated.
So that was a very, very difficult period of my life. I was fortunate enough that all the hard work and all the effort that really worked out, and school really started to stand up on its own feet after a year and more.
Bilal, where's Ahmed from?
Ahmed is from Lahore. This city is the cultural heart of Pakistan. It sort of sets trends here, and whatever happens in Lahore sets the tone in education, in media, in culture, and the arts, as Ahmed explains.
Living in a city which shapes the narrative of Pakistan in both political sense, cultural sense, in terms of cuisine, in terms of other senses as well, that brings an additional responsibility, because sometimes you feel that the city is carrying the weight of the entire nation. So that actually weight, people living in Lahore, people actually feel that weight, that they have to be extra responsible and do something good for the society.
Marissa, in addition to its political importance, Lahore is also a very vibrant, a very dynamic, and a very beautiful city. It has these stunning medieval mosques, lush gardens, and great traditional music. The spring is the festival season here.
Bilal, what is up with this amazing music?
Well, Marissa, my trip to Pakistan and to Lahore coincided with the gorgeous festival of traditional arts in the city's medieval sort of walled center that's known as the Old City. This is where you'll find bazaars and palaces that once made the city a destination along the Silk Route. The concert you're hearing behind me was held in the courtyard of a beautiful 16th century mosque, and probably the city's hottest ticket that night.
Okay, so describe the audience here. Who are we looking at?
Well, the audience was mostly a very affluent and a very well-connected set of Pakistanis, the Lahori jet set, as it were. They whiz into cultural events like this from the rich suburbs and chauffeured cars, and there's a lot of security everywhere outside. The actual communities, though, who live in the old city were listening to the music from behind security fences and barriers. They're looking in from crowded windowsills and rooftops. Residents of the old city live in overcrowded apartment housing, stacked upon each other in these dense, narrow-laned, and sort of economically disadvantaged communities. It's here where Ahmed grew up. He grew up in the old city. And it's the other side of Pakistan's great class divide. And language is a fault line.
Language, how so?
Well, the young people in Ahmed's neighborhood, Marissa, are mostly educated in Urdu, which is the national language of Pakistan. But Urdu doesn't really prepare you for an increasingly global and sort of digital job market. You need English for that. And many of the government schools are actually in terrible physical condition, and they're still teaching in Urdu. Journalist Raza Rumi explains.
Since the inception of the country, we have an English-speaking and English writing and reading elite. And, knowledge of English language is a marker. If you know the English language, it means you have some kind of a job opportunity at some point available to you.
Bilal, where did Ahmed go to school?
I asked Ahmed about sort of his own family background.
Well, my father is a government servant. My mother has been teaching for the last 25 to 30 years. They wanted me to have good education, but a good English medium education. So they sent me to a private school. And after grade 5, they could not really afford that high fee. Since going into grade 6, the fee increased substantially. So they had to put me in a free Urdu medium school.
Marissa, Ahmed is one of those rare people who actually made it across Pakistan's class divide. He received a very coveted and really, really rare scholarship to Lahore's leading private university. It's called LUMS, the Lahore University of Management Sciences. It's like the Harvard of Pakistan, and the kind of place that produces the next generation of English-educated leaders.
It was like a dream come true. Even in LUMS, I could not really believe that I was studying in the top university, rubbing shoulders with the best and the richest in Pakistan. But at the same time, I used to always think that I got the right opportunities, but there are a lot of other kids like me who might not, get into LUMS, and like there are very few seats. So what about them? How would they excel in life? So that feeling, that consciousness always impacted my decisions. So that is why I started school in Lahore.
Okay, Bilal, so tell me what it was like the first time you met Ahmed.
Well, I met Ahmed about an hour away from the old city, where the concert was and where these communities are that he grew up in. I came to meet him, actually, and with some of his fellow graduates of the Lahore University of Management Sciences. We met at a couple's rooftop home, and we were meeting for a very delicious soiree of Lahore's kebabs I wish you could have come for. The people I was meeting, they're well-traveled, confident young leaders that you and I would recognize in Washington or New York. One of our hosts, Qasim, is another entrepreneur in sort of the field of education, is the founder of a program called Beyond the Classroom, which is trying to help Pakistani schools.
Small initiatives like these are popping up in different parts of the country, and it's very heartening to see not just Ahmed's initiative or the people that you're speaking to right now all would be in the same camp, that we hope that something like this can be replicated in different parts of the country.
Sitting next to him is Noorzadeh. She works for the Legal Action Program, fighting on behalf of prisoners on death row.
You have to be willing to sort of adapt and approach each situation with a very open mind.
Another thing that connects this group of friends is the fact that they all went to the Seeds of Peace camp with the Pakistani delegation. Noorzadeh, Qasim, and Ahmed are all alumni of the summer camp in Maine. They say that experience propelled and ignited their own ideas for how to change their community.
I think that desire and that I'm not going to be part of the problem, I'm going to be part of the solution, is where the seed comes in.
That's Nabil that you're hearing. He's another person who was with us that night, and he led the most recent Pakistani delegation to the camp in Maine.
And Bilal, you were there that summer, right?
Yeah, I watched as the campers raised and sang Pakistan's national anthem outside the gates of the camp. This anthem, though, Marissa, reminded me of Pakistan's story. You know, the country was founded in 1947, and in many ways, the past 2 decades have probably been its most difficult chapter.
Growing up in Pakistan in the last 15 to 20 years, every year, because of one reason or another, we used to hear that Pakistan is going to go bankrupt or is going to fall off a hill.
Ahmed is that one person, I have to say, who just told me that he refuses to feel cynical.
For me personally and a lot of my peers, it was very easy for us to go abroad and settle down in Australia or Canada or in Germany. But I'm very, very glad that a lot of good people have stayed back in Pakistan and decided to invest in social ventures, do good things for the country. And eventually, I believe these are the young people who are going to change the political, cultural, and educational landscape of Pakistan and change it for the better.
I mean, Pakistan is very far away from the United States, but I'm hearing a lot of similarities in terms of the passion that it takes to get something like a nonprofit, especially an educational initiative, off the ground. It's not about money, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And that's the biggest challenge, I think, that Ahmed and his family have faced. Education has become big business in Pakistan. And the reason this has been so challenging financially is that he wanted very much to offer a subsidized education system where kids would be mostly here on scholarships that he would be able to provide. And Marissa, in recent months, Ahmed has raised close to $50,000 for the tuition subsidies through a global fundraising campaign. He's been working on a lot of new ideas that were inspired by Seeds of Peace and its fellowship program for social entrepreneurs. It's called Gather, and it provides young leaders like Ahmed and the knowledge and the real-world networks to accelerate their projects.
I mean, he sounds really ambitious and optimistic.
That's not even the half of it. I mean, Marissa, he has visions to take the Lincoln school system national and to create a lot more versions of it. But for now, it is one school.
Johnny, Johnny, yes, Papa.
Before I left Lahore, I did ask Ahmed, despite the fact that he's still early stage in this vision that he has, how he feels when he goes in and sees this school that he's created.
My hope and my dream is that when I see these young students, when they grow up, when they settle into their professional lives, hopefully they're going to do something good for the country. When Seeds of Peace invested in me when I was 16 years of age and took me to the United States, which was then again a huge privilege for me at that time, they were making a bet, an investment that probably he will do something nice for his own people and work towards conflict prevention, education for girls, and a lot of other things which are badly needed in our society. And although I have not fulfilled that potential, but at least I'm trying to do that part. So when I see my kids, I see them at the same way, that when they will grow up, they will be doctors, engineers, and especially girls, they will be focusing on the education of their own children. So they will be breaking the centuries-old cycle where people just have kids, they don't really earn anything. So when I see them, I see a lot of hope. I see a lot of passion and commitment, and hopefully they're going to execute on their plans.
Well, Ahmed, it's been really nice to meet you here in Lahore, in your home city, and wish you and the students all the best, and thank you again for the time.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope you have a great stay in Lahore.
Well, tell me, did this trip change the way you saw your home country?
I did. Marissa, I was really inspired by what Ahmed has done here and in this school. It's a very small program, and it's a young and very new initiative. But I think to see someone taking ownership of something that they have experienced themselves and to give back to the community that they grew up in, it was very inspiring. And I really took a lot home personally from that trip.
Bilal, thank you so much. This was really fascinating.
You've been listening to Inspired, a 6-part radio documentary series brought to you by Seeds of Peace. I'm Bilal Qureshi.
And I'm Marissa Mazria Katz. Thank you for joining us.